Hi, folks. We're here to talk about another strategy called number and stats. This strategy is when you find the author puts in some statistics or percentages. We don't want you to just skip right over them and keep reading. We want you to pay attention to those and try to think about why the author put that in.
So numbers and stats can do lots to an article. Specific quantities or comparisons might give you more information about what you're dealing with in regards to the size of it or the scale of it. But sometimes the writer is also purposefully vague or imprecise about those numbers because they want either to mask the reality or they want it to be thought-provoking. So numerals such as 90%, 3,400, 90%, 4 times as many.
That's going to be the specific quantities.
Those are the specific ones, yep. But you also might see things like many, most, some, a lot, taller than, older than, right? These are much more vague.
Yeah.
Right, so you have to read between the lines or do some more research about those numbers.
And so you want to ask yourself, now that you spotted those numbers and you think, okay, the author might have put these in, how do these numbers work across the text to help you to see patterns across the time or across cultures? Because a lot of times authors will put in 2008 this happened, and now it's happening in 2016. So they're making you make connections across time. They also might show you what's happening in a different country to make you predict that it might happen in your own country, or again with cultures as well.
Numbers and statistics, they often help you see details that will help you recognize further evidence. They'll help you arrive at a conclusion. You could also use those numbers to draw comparisons between different pieces of data. It helps you identify further details too, or draw inferences. So that's not only reading between the lines, but wondering what the numbers and statistics mean.
Yeah, and we're going to use that number sign as our code for it.
So
yeah. So we're going to try this out. This is an article that you might find when you're also looking at your research. For this point, we're looking at voter turnout. Now this, as you sometimes may come across, this is actually a website, so I can't make any marginal notes. So what I have to do is you're going to have to come up with another way of doing it. And one other way you could do it would be open up a document, and then I would always title it. On the top, I would put in what the assignment is.
And should we put the name of the article?
Yes. So now as I'm going through, I'm trying to think about, okay, what notes am I going to take off of this article? And so I want to know which one it is, because if we try to do it later, we're probably not going to remember. Different computer. Voter turnout. And you could also copy and paste the web address too, right?
That's true. Grab the URL.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see what it has to say.
So this particular text, we're looking for numbers and stats. That's our focus. So as we're reading through, once we see a number and stat, we have to stop and say, okay, why did the author put this in? What type of information is he trying to give me? And pay attention to those.
Voter turnout always drops off for midterm elections, but why? With 3.5 months to the midterm elections, it's still unclear the extent to which Republicans' advantage in voter engagement will translate into more actual House and Senate seats. But we'll go out on a limb on 2 predictions. A lot fewer people will vote this year than did in 2012, and Democrats are likely to suffer accordingly.
So if you're looking at that, we didn't see a number, but we did see a vague number, which was a lot fewer. So as we're thinking about a lot fewer, we want to think about, this is the author's whole point, is that a lot fewer people will turn out. So he's not just saying fewer, he's saying a lot fewer. So why did the author use that? What type of pattern do you think they want us to see?
Probably that we're predicting that voter turnout will be low. We're not quite sure how low.
Right, so you don't want to put in a specific number because you could be wrong, but if you put in a vague term, you might be a little bit closer.
Voter turnout regularly drops in midterm elections and has done so since the 1840s. In 2008, for instance, 57.1% of the voting age population cast ballots, the highest level in 4 decades, as Barack Obama became the first African American elected president. But 2 years later, only 36.9% voted in the midterm election that put the House back in Republican hands. For Obama's re-election in 2012, turnout rebounded to 53.7%.
So now I'm
Okay.
getting this. So in 2008, 57.1% of people voted. Then 2 years later, 36% of the people voted. And then again in 2012, 53%. So
Which matches the graph up here, right? So there's clearly better voter turnout for presidential elections than for congressional ones, right? The
so you're
midterm
making that
elections.
conclusion.
I'm inferring that. So we can infer from the numbers, right? This
Well, let's put in the exact stats
Okay,
so we can
let's see.
remember it. Because if I'm going to use this in a paper,
We're
I
gonna
want to make
forget.
sure I know and not be vague like the writer did already.
So let's double check in the article. So from 57.1 to 36.9, right? 57.1
On a major election.
to, yes,
So maybe put that
presidential
in, 57.1.
presidential. And how about we call it like a landmark election? First African American president, they stressed, had a factor. Okay, so then
And
we
then
had
it went down to 36.9. And we have to get the stats 36.9. Yep.
36.9.
You put
Okay.
the stat twice.
I did.
And
oh my
then,
gosh!
and then
what's
you're
this
gonna
one
go,
here?
yeah, no,
Is that right?
36.9,
Okay.
and then it's gonna go back up to 53.7.
Got it. See, close reading is so important here.
Because
so
we want
this
to get
was
this percentages
presidential
right.
election again,
and maybe
right?
put in percentage too.
Excellent. So maybe we could infer that voters are more inspired to turn out when it's the president we're talking about,
Yeah.
and not members of the House
And
of
do you think that
Representatives and the
proves his
Senate.
point that voter turnout will probably be low in the interim?
It matches
In
the
the
title of the
midterm?
article
Right.
during midterm elections. Remember, folks, midterm means in the middle of
A major.
president's term. Okay, so should we?
So put number.
Right, we can infer that this might reveal, right? That voters' turnout improves during, let's say, major elections, such as the presidential election.
So I'm not just putting in all of the information from the text, I'm actually thinking about it and thinking about why the author used those. So why do you think, if we could put that in, why do you think the author used those specific stats? Do you think we could put that in as well?
Added
our
to our
notes?
notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So like if we're thinking about author's craft, why would the author put this in? Well, this will further his argument that the voter turnout is going to be low.
yeah.
So he's not going to put in a statistic that doesn't support what he's saying. So as we're reading through, we want to think, does he give that counter argument? Does he show the other side that shows it might not be true? Or is he only proving his one point that voter turnout's going to be low?
And so those numbers help us arrive at that conclusion.
All right, so I think we can go back. You think you get the idea of this, and what we're going to do is, as you read and research today, you can either code the text if it is a Google Doc, but you can also make up your own notes section on a Google document with a number sign and look at what the numbers are, record those numbers, but then also try to see how these numbers help you see patterns across time. Again, we made that conclusion that over time it's gone up, it's gone down,
Yep,
and then
and
back,
back up
up
again.
So that's how we get to see it. And then we also thought about, why would the author use this? Because he's trying to prove his point. So it's not only noticing the numbers or making sure that you don't skip over it, it's also thinking about why the author would use that.
And what they mean.